Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Inferno here from RotoHeat.com, part of our RotoHeat.com family of podcasts and live streams. And this week we're talking our rankings a bit and where our discrepancies are between the three of us, Rob Sullivan, Bryce Frazier, and myself. And well, before we get into that, as always, we're going to take a look at our news and notes. And but first, let's have everybody introduce themselves. As I mentioned, it's Rob Sullivan and Bryce Frazier. And Sully, why don't you start things off and where folks can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rob. So you can find me on Twitter at RotoHeat Sully. I live in the Facebook communities, our RotoHeat Facebook communities, both the Dynasty and the Redraft, as well as over on Discord and content creator for our website, RotoHeat.com. Bryce, how about you, buddy? I always love asking this question.
Yeah, you can always find me on the Facebook. I'm pretty active in there on both the Redraft and Dynasty pages. I always like to comment on any sort of posts that, want opinions and things like that. And that's a great platform for you guys to ever post something. If you're always looking for other input, and another platform I'm on that you can do that is the Discord, and it's free to join that as well, guys. And feel free to private message me as well. What about you? And yourself?
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at RotoHeatRob, and I try and pop into the Discord and Facebook when time allows, which unfortunately the last couple of weeks hasn't been very often.
I hear that.
Yeah. Whether you're watching this live or the playback on YouTube, we ask that you like and subscribe. Also, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please make sure to like and subscribe there as well. We appreciate that. Moving into our news and notes, and this one's new here within the last hour. Looks like Leonard Fournette is on his way to Tampa Bay. What do you guys think about that?
Take it away, Bryce.
Okay. Can you surround Tom Brady with any more weapons? I think Fournette, this benefits Fournette's upside, especially when it comes to touchdowns. He's been on a team where he's faced a stacked box, I think, more than any running back in the NFL in the years that he's been with the Jaguars. So I think it's a great fit for him. Personally, it's hard to say if his value goes up fantasy wise, because I don't think he sees as much action when it comes to the pass game. But Tom Brady does like to dump it off, and what I'm hearing at the camp is like none of the running backs are doing too well in the pass game, and Bruce Arians has been known to utilize one running back. So I think it's a good fit for Fournette, and I think his fantasy owners can now kind of rest assured that he keeps his value. What about you, Sully?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think first and foremost, there's a whole lot of people that have shares in Leonard Fournette that just exhaled about an hour ago, so that's cool. I'm one of them, so I'm happy with that. I don't know what to make of it other than I totally agree with Bryce. I think that his touchdown upside, he had a second most touches in the NFL last year next to Christian McCaffrey, and he only scored 3 touchdowns, which was ridiculous. That's definitely going to go up this year. It's going to be interesting to see how his workload's managed. I dropped him down to 28 in my rankings when the Jaguars released him. I don't know what to do with him now. It's funny, I have him one spot ahead of Ronald Jones right now. The only thing I can say is he's going to stay ahead of Ronald Jones. I think this is pretty bad for Rojo, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I don't know if LaShawn McCoy is now going to be released. Keyshawn Vaughn, I think this year was almost going to be a working redshirt season anyway, the way it was shaping up. So I don't really know where to rank Fournette, but I do think that, in all honesty, I can't think of many places that he could have gone that would have been better for him in a fantasy scenario. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's a great landing spot for him. It really kills whatever Rojo truthers were left out there. And as you said, Keyshawn Vaughn didn't sound like he was really going to play too much running back as part of playing this year. As far as the touchdowns go, I think this is great for Leonard. That's been his biggest thing is He hasn't scored touchdowns, right? So, but we also have to think he played behind such a bad team or just on such a bad team.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just his fault. That's one of the biggest things I heard of people complaining about Leonard Fournette is he doesn't score touchdowns. Well, that whole team couldn't score. It wasn't just him that couldn't score in the red zone. They couldn't score in the red zone. To be honest, they've been brutal for years, and he's been the best player on that team, in my opinion, his entire career. And I'm glad he's in some place where hopefully he's gonna fit in well. I didn't buy the whole personality stuff because to me, when it's one individual, okay, maybe they've got an issue. When you've got 20 guys trying to get away from Jacksonville over the last 3 years, that seems more like a team issue. So I think a new situation will do him well.
Yeah.
I'm excited too because I also had some shares of Leonard Fournette, and suddenly they don't look so shoddy anymore.
I think winning tends to shut you up too. Like, I can't imagine that. I would be disappointed if I was a head coach or an owner of a team and the players were content with 3 and 4 and 5 wins every year. I'd kind of want my guys, kind of like I like diva wide receivers that complain they want the football. It shows me something there. So I think Fournette goes to Tampa, and I think he's going to be a lot quieter. And I know this is a redraft show, but the question I have for both of you guys is, what do you think this does to his dynasty value that seemed dead in the water? Is it reborn at all now?
No, I didn't see whether there's specifics on a contract yet.
No, I think it's going to be a 1-year minimum kind of incentive-laden thing. I haven't actually seen that. But I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for him to play himself into another contract there.
I think it's there, definitely. If it's just a 1-year deal that he's got the opportunity to play himself into another contract, I think that's his best bet, actually, because if you look at next year's free agent market, there's a lot of guys becoming free agents, and looks like a number of guys, 3 or 4 coming out who could be starters right away as well in the draft. So for sure, I think his best thing is to have a great season, keep his head down, but also, from the sense of not causing trouble, if that was in fact true, but be a leader where he can, and hopefully earn that contract and earn that chance to stay right there, because they've already are taking the chance. They're the most likely to pay him next year.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we also had Joe Mixon signing a contract this week. Bryce, what do you think about that?
I think it's great. I think, Joe Mixon, it's great for owners and, Bengals fans, because I think Mixon has been, I feel like he's surprised a lot of people because he was in a terrible situation. But, at the beginning of last year, he was extremely disappointing, but ended the year really strong. And the team, addressed a huge need for them in this draft, obviously, at the quarterback position. So if he was doing that well on such a terrible team, you can only hope that he does better if Joe Burrow's is any good at all, at least decent. He's going to churn out, similar or if not more production. So I think it's good for him and, all the fans and fantasy owners for him. So what do you think, Sully?
I think it's a good deal for the Bengals. I think it's a good deal for Joe Mixon. I think it's a ridiculous amount to pay a running back. But I will say this. When you have a rookie quarterback that you feel is going to be there for a while, that's the time that you can spend on a running back. It's kind of like the Rams did early on in Jared Goff's tenure when they extended Gurley. They just screwed it up by extending Goff way too early, and Goff then Gurley had his issues. But I think it's too much. I think it interests me a lot as a Vikings fan, and to see what Dalvin Cook wants now, and Alvin Kamara. Rob alluded to the free agent class, the Chris Carsons, the Aaron Joneses. There's a ton of talent in this class. And I think Mixon just set the market. I think McCaffrey's a little bit higher for a reason, but I don't like the number. I don't like the contract at all, but it totally makes sense to me for the team based on their other surroundings on their roster. Rob?
Yeah, and it already, talking about those free agents, and you mentioned Alvin Kamara, it already came out this week then that, he may have a little bit of a contract dispute going on with New Orleans. Him and his agent kind of decline that or deny that, I should say. And, and they also deny the rumors of, being interested in the trade and that kind of stuff. But the rumor had it that the Saints are willing to give him Joe Mixon type money, and he'd rather see Christian McCaffrey type money. So we've got the market set for the next, probably 12 months here for these guys coming out. They're going to think they're Christian McCaffreys, and their owners are going to think that they're probably Joe Mixon's, and it's going to create some tension, and it's going to be a wild 12 months because there's a lot of really good running backs available, and a lot of them deserve to be paid. I think. I think
Running backs don't
Leonard
get paid.
Fournette should have stayed in Jacksonville and been paid because he was their best player. But I'm also glad for him that he's going to a better situation.
Yeah.
But I think we definitely have the market, and it's just going to come down to the two sides, in each individual case, the two sides trying to figure out where they can land between in the Mixon to McCaffrey range. So,
Well, when you look at Kamara and you look at Dalvin Cook, the Vikings and the Saints don't have any money, right? So there's other moves that they're going to have to make if they're going to want to pay these guys that Joe Mixon number. Honestly, as a Vikings fan, I'm totally comfortable with rolling with Alexander Mattison, drafting another running back, and seeing what you got. Because to me, you don't win anything with Dalvin Cook, and you might lose a game and a half more without him. So why am I doing that to my organization for 4 more years?
yeah, well, and I'm not sure exactly on the Saints number, but I think I looked Monday or something. Are the Vikings 19 million over the cap right now for this year? That was before the restructuring of Riley Reif's contract. And of course, if you go over the cap, so they restructured, they're saving a little bit of money there, but if they go over the cap by 19 million, that means they're down 19 million in salary cap for next year because you get punished on the next year, plus whatever the NFL salary cap as a whole drops because of the whole COVID situation and the fact we're almost guaranteed that that's going to probably whatever was gained this year, I think it was $20 million, is probably gone next year, if not a little more.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yep.
Okay, a little bit more craziness. Mohamed Sanu, Bill Belichick finally made a bad move. Trades a second last year for Mohamed Sanu, and they cut him today. What did he play in? A game and a half last year before he got hurt and sat out the rest of the year? Yeah. So they traded for him for 6 quarters, a second-round pick for 6 quarters, and he's being forced out, get this, by a guy who was a Division II defensive back.
Nice.
Is forcing him out at wide receiver. Gunnar Olszewski
or something?
Olszewski, yes. Went to Bemidji State here, just 90 miles down the road from where I live. And kid originally from Texas. And transitioned in the NFL. Well, in college, he was a defensive back and a punt and kick returner. Started returning punts and kicks last year and transitioning to wide receiver. And now it looks like he might be the starting slot wide receiver for the Pats when they roll out of camp.
That's nuts.
Crazy. Not only to be a Division II guy who's going to make it, but you're making it by not even switching positions, but switching sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's insane. Isn't Damian Byrd still on their roster?
Damiere Byrd, yeah.
Damiere Byrd, the Panthers old guy, and I guess Nikhil and Julian Edelman. Hey, so well, I need to know what Bryce thinks of this because he's our resident Patriots expert.
So the Mohamed Sanu trade, now if you go back to when the trade was made, it kind of made a little sense because the team was struggling to move the ball, but their defense was playing lights out. So Mohamed Sanu was for sure brought in to bring a veteran presence that, could pick up the system pretty quick and hopefully make a playoff run. Well, obviously that didn't work out because if, the Patriots would have even made the Super Bowl last year and Mohamed Sanu was any good in the play, like he's even decent at the playoffs, the move wouldn't even look that bad. It just didn't turn out that way. He got hurt and he was unable to really be a factor. And then we got wiped in the playoffs because our run defense was terrible, basically. So yeah, the trade looks bad. And then if you look how you added to the notes that pick became J.K. Dobbins, that doesn't really bother me because, no rookie's guaranteed to be productive. And who knows if J.K. Dobbins is going to turn out to what people want him to be. He's in a great situation. But nonetheless, it doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me when it happened. It doesn't bother me now because I understand why they did it. But But like you were kind of brought up though, Bill Belichick finds talent and he finds it late in the draft. That's a second, like you said, a Division II guy. Well, their first pick this last draft was also a Division II guy that's going to now start safety because Patrick Chung is opting out. So, if anything, it just shows the organization is able to also find talent in places that people might not look. I mean, Julian Edelman was a quarterback in college and is now one of the I feel like throughout his career has been super underrated in his value as a wide receiver. So, it doesn't really make me mad because, like I said, I understood why they made the trade when it happened. What do you think, Sully?
I think, first of all, you've won enough damn Super Bowls, so you don't need to get mad. And I've had enough of you guys. So I'm still waiting for you guys, my whole damn adult life, to fall off the mountain. And I'm still not sure you have yet. I still have a feeling the Patriots are going to win their division. I don't know why, but half their defense left town and their quarterback and a whole bunch of other stuff, but they're still right there. So, you know what? You can go through every organization in NFL history, and especially if you go through the draft and you cherry pick and you see who went here and who went there. Michael Thomas went in the second round. Like, what NFL team wouldn't pick Michael Thomas in the first round now if they had to get a chance to do that over again? So
right.
You draft for need sometimes. So you will draft that safety, or you will draft that offensive lineman based on need. And to Bryce's point, the Patriots made a trade based on need. I think when the trade was made, N'Keal Harry was still on the PUP list. Yep. Julian Edelman was doing absolutely everything. The Patriots went from having Gronkowski's era and being one of the most targeted tight end, quarterback targeting the tight end more than any team in the league, to the absolute least last year with Izzo and Lacoste and the other clowns that were running around on the field. So, yeah, it's fun for me because it's fun to bug Bryce and it's fun to laugh at the Patriots, but the deal's understandable. It's just funny how it works out that the pick goes to Atlanta, then it flips for Hayden Hurst to Baltimore and becomes J.K. Dobbins. So it's kind of fun. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, and hindsight's always 20/20, right? But finally, Bill Belichick didn't win one, so there's the plus. Especially when you consider he could have gotten guys like Van Jefferson, who's going to be starting in 3 wide receiver sets, it sounds like, for the Rams. Guys who went after that pick.
I meant to look at the wide. I meant to look at the wide receivers who went after Dobbins, I didn't.
I'd say the big 3 were the big 4 were Van Jefferson, Denzel Mims, Bryan Edwards, and Devin Duvernay. But of course, you can look at it from the scope of when the trade happened. Wide receiver was a need, but if they hadn't made the trade and they'd gone into the draft, wide receiver was still a need in the draft.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, they tried to do what many dynasty owners have been burned by and tried to go with the veteran, and it doesn't work out. And so, it works out this way, though, that finally chalk that up to a win for 31 other NFL teams.
It's about frickin' time. Holy cow.
And, just continuing to talk about the draft and a team that had a really good draft, formerly out in Oakland and now in Las Vegas, the Raiders. They got 2 really good rookie wide receivers, it appears like, in Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards, and that has been amplified because their number 1 wide receiver, Tyrell Williams, is now on IR and out for the season with shoulder surgery. And Sully talks about that.
I think this is really good news for the Darren Waller owners of the world, because I think Carr is going to revert back to that comfortable target. And I think it's really good news for Hunter Renfrow, personally. Ruggs and Edwards are going to get their run, but they're both rookie wide receivers. I think Edwards is a little bit more of a project. He's got a bunch of injury history. I'm the resident poo-poo on Bryan Edwards guy around here, so I can't really change my tune yet. I might be wrong on that. It has happened plenty of times before. But I think they've signed about 100 pass catchers. They're talking about how Nelson Aguilar is having an amazing camp. So I don't know if I believe that or not. Zay Jones is there. Like they got 100 guys with name recognition, but I don't know if any of them are really any good. But I do think it's good for Hunter Renfrow. I like the way he finished towards the end of the season. Carr likes him. Gruden likes him. And Waller, he's a safety net for Carr. So I think Waller's going to move back up my rankings, and Hunter might move up a little bit. But Edwards and Ruggs will stay where I have them. Bryce, what do you think?
I think it. I guess my dogs don't like him. I think in hindsight, it's good for everybody because when the number one goes away, everyone moves up a spot, right?
Yeah.
So, Hunter Renfrow is going to be on the field, and he's already knows the system, so it benefits him. I think Darren Waller is going to have another pretty good year, similar, probably a little bit less than he did this last year, but I think he kind of stays the same. But I think it really opens the door for Henry Ruggs because Tyrell Williams is a deep ball guy. He's fast, and Henry Ruggs is fast. And he's going to be their deep ball guy. So I think it opens the door more for him more than anyone because I think he's more of the polished receiver that they got out of the draft, and I think everyone's excited about him. So that whole team it's going to be interesting to see who steps up because it's got to be someone, or they're just going to be bad or very, very bad again this year. And poor Waller and Josh Jacobs are just going to have to carry the teams to not be shut out every game. So. What do you think, Silvers?
I think it's great for the two rookie wide receivers. Ruggs is going to be the starting Z wide receiver. Edwards is going to be the starting X wide receiver now. I mean, these guys are in good spots. Renfrow out of the slot as the old man of the group, both figuratively and literally, and by looks, because he looks like he's 40, despite being 23. And no, Ruggs, we've been hearing a lot about the offense was going to run through Ruggs anyways. A lot of the passing game was going to be designed around his speed and that. And Derek Carr has absolutely loved Bryan Edwards, calling him Devontae Adams, the second coming of Devontae Adams, who he played with in college. Devontae Adams and Carr had a great college career together. So
you sound fine. Did you draft them? Did you draft Bryan Edwards in quite a few drafts?
Seriously, you related?
I
your cousin?
may or may not have gotten them last weekend in my final rookie draft. So,
okay.
But I also think it, like you said, it opens the doors for some other guys. Nelson Aguilar, a chance to stick and do something. He's had moments flashed in here or there. I think Zay Jones hasn't lived up to his billing, but he's very slowly improved over time. I also kind of find it interesting for Lynn Bowden Jr. I know they drafted him and they listed him as a running back, but that's a guy who played wide receiver in college.
Played everywhere in college.
Well, yeah, and then ended up being a quarterback who basically played the position like a running back because he only threw 75 passes in 12 games.
He might be the Raiders' best quarterback.
Oh, I don't know about that. Derek Carr is pretty darn good. He's a lot better, I think, than people give him credit for. Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, he hasn't been great. But he's a guy who's throws for around 4,000 yards a year. They just have struggled to put the ball into the end zone. I don't know if they fix that as a team from an NFL standpoint, from a football standpoint, if they fix punching the ball into the end zone. I think they only averaged 19.1 points a game last year. That's not going to win when you're in a division with the Chiefs. But I think everybody, like you said, Bryce, has a chance to benefit from it. All right. If we have any questions, folks, get them in on the Facebook or the YouTube, and we'll answer those at the end of the show. And now let's go into breaking down our discrepancies. We're going to start with quarterbacks, and let's get the glaring one in the room. Apparently, Bryce likes Aaron Rodgers more than even a Packers fan because he has him in the top 10. Is that what I'm seeing there?
Yeah. So, I mean, he's at the bottom end of the top 10. And, with quarterbacks, there's so many different ways that you could rank them. And I'm looking at your guys' list, and it's like I can't really argue that greatly or have a good argument for why you shouldn't have a certain player there. But I just think Aaron Rodgers, last year, his numbers were down, strictly because of Devontae Adams. If his wide receiver core, especially his number one, who and Devontae Adams is a top 3 receiver in my opinion, stays healthy the whole year, I think his numbers could easily, be in the top 10. He's older, he's not as good as he once was, but Aaron Rodgers can still sling it, and that team can score. They still have good offensive weapons and a decent offensive line. So. He's a guy up there, but I could also see why people wouldn't have him, in their top 10. So, what do you think, Sully? Do you like my Aaron Rodgers placement?
I can't really argue it
Right.
with a lot of confidence. I have Aaron Rodgers at 15. The difference between 10 and 15 at quarterback is probably going to be about a quarter of a point per game. So quarterback's crazy. Like I think top 5 to top 20 last year was just under 2 points per game difference.
Right.
I do think Aaron Rodgers is extra motivated by the Packers' interesting draft. I think he's a little extra motivated by the addition of Jordan Love. It's an interesting offense. I really think that Matt LaFleur wants to be Kyle Shanahan 2.0, and he wants to run the ball down everybody's throat and control the clock. So I think Rodgers is going to be up against it. He's really going to have to either run a little bit more than he has, or he's going to need to get a little bit more fortunate in and around the red zone with some touchdown passes versus Aaron Jones touchdown runs, which very easily could happen. So between 10 and 15, it's really nothing to fight about.
Right.
Green Bay guy, what do you think?
Yeah, I've got him down in that 15 range as well, but I just don't see him as a top 10 quarterback anymore. Not from a fantasy perspective, not when he only has one wide receiver, not when neither the tight end you drafted last year or the fullback tight end you drafted this year are going to be starting at tight end. Instead, it's going to be something called Robert Tonyan, who
He had a nice touchdown catch a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean he's had some flashes, but he is an undrafted free agent at tight end. I don't think he's special, and I just don't see it. There's not the passing weapons there any longer for Rodgers to be a top 10 quarterback. Gone are the days of having Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, and James Jones. Arguably, any combination of them would have been the best pair of wide receivers in the NFL for 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
You had 3 of them. You had 3 separate sets ways you could pair it up, and they would have all been top 10 wide receivers and pairings in the NFL. So gone are those days. There's just not enough there. He doesn't run like he did when he was younger. He with A.J. Dillon there, Aaron Jones scored a lot in the red zone last year, so he's going to regress a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
But A.J. Dillon could pick that up. I just don't see, even if he's passing the ball, how many times are they going to let him throw the ball in the red zone, considering how weak the offensive pass-catching weapons are outside of Devontae Adams. I mean, you can triple team Devontae Adams in the red zone.
Can't triple team Aaron Jones.
We'll get to that.
So wait, Rodgers is he's not like he was, and his weapons aren't there. But you got Carson Wentz in your top 10, and I would say Carson Wentz's weapons are worse than.
Yeah, but Carson Wentz was top 10 last year with nobody.
Okay.
With 2 tight ends and an undrafted free agent, he was a top 10 quarterback. Rodgers has the worst. Technically, Rodgers' pass catchers are about the same as they were last year. Jimmy Graham to Robert Tonyan, that's probably a little downgrade. Alan Lazard being in his second year is probably a little upgrade. So we're going to cancel it out. His wide receivers are about the same as they were last year.
Okay.
And Rodgers has gone down statistically each of the past 4 seasons. Carson Wentz is coming off his second best statistical season with absolutely nobody to throw the football to, other than Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and an undrafted former quarterback playing a wide receiver for the first time. Now he's got weapons like Jalen Reagor, who might miss the first week or 2, yes, but he'll have Jonathan Hightower, he'll have Deshaun Jackson back. He's got way more weapons this year than he had at the start of last year, or at any point, or at the end of last year. I guess opening day he had a couple more weapons, but yeah, that's why I feel Carson Wentz is the better quarterback. I know people also say he's injured. He tends to get banged up a lot, but I don't feel like he's going to get that injured all the time there. Okay. Should we move on to running back then, or we got any other discrepancies at wide receiver or at quarterback? Excuse me.
Trying to look at Sully's, but his are pretty close to mine, except he's got Matt Ryan in there and not.
The only difference between my rankings and both of yours is I don't have Allen in my top 10. I have him at 12. I don't know how much you can talk about that either.
Yeah,
so.
I'm at 10, so not far off. I would say, Silvers, you don't have Brady in your top 10, but he's got by far the most weapons of probably any quarterback in the league, other than maybe Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
Actually, more than Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably something I need to readdress.
Fair.
But I put him kind of in that same range right there with Rodgers, where he could be top 10. He's probably, if I look at it, he's probably like 11 on my list or something here.
I think our top 5 are the exact same. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll find the top 6 almost everywhere is the same.
Yeah.
And I think the only difference, Bryce, is you got Watson a little bit lower. But again, when you're talking one or two spots at quarterback, could be talking 18 points on the season. So it's not a big deal.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I go Brady, Stafford, Rodgers at 11, 12, 13. So, I mean, those guys are all right there as far as being quarterback ones at the back end. Totally. So, really, you can kind of flip anybody in the bottom 6 out for those 3. I mean, sure. I could see it going anyway.
Right.
All right, moving on to our running backs. And I guess then the note we have is I was a little high on Henry. Bryce is a little high on Jones, and Sully high on Sanders. So I'm the only one with Clyde Edwards-Helaire currently in the top 10. And Rick's probably over at his office watching us on the YouTube and rolling his eyes at me for having him in the top 10. So we're going to save that for last. And why don't we talk a little bit about Aaron Jones?
Sell me again, Bryce.
I feel like I talk about this
8 weeks in a row
all the time. Yeah, I mean, I'll just make it short. I've had this argument, or I've had this debate with another RotoHeat member, Joe Kidder, and basically he's like, you can't imagine he gets the same amount of touchdowns. I'm like, no, but Sully, you mentioned that he also had how many weeks with below how many points again? Like
5 weeks with below 10 PPR points.
Right. I don't think you see that again this year. I think that you see more consistent. I think everything kind of levels out. He's not going to have that, the crazy waves of up and downs, and he's going to give you more consistent results. And then, I can understand why people think he's going to have a huge regression, but I don't think it's too far-fetched to think the number 2 fantasy running back last year it stays in the top 5. So, there's a lot of guys that can pass him. I wouldn't be surprised if he drops out of the top 5 or even the top 10, and then a lot of guys move up into the top 5 or top 10. That's just the crazy thing about the NFL. It just changes every year. So,
yeah. Again, real quick, it's I think it was 65% of his receiving production was with Devonta Adams out of the lineup. 100% of his receiving touchdowns when he was out of the lineup. Like I said, 5 games under 10 points. And again, I think Matt LaFleur wants to be Kyle Shanahan so bad. He's his mentor, and he wants to run his offense like that. So A.J. Dillon comes in. There's another running back. I don't think Jamal Williams is going anywhere. I think that he's just going to have less touches. Like no one in San Francisco gets 200 touches in a year. I think that's what they want to do in Green Bay. And if they're successful with that and they're winning football games that way, it's going to be a really ugly year for Aaron Jones. And then if you want to be a total conspiracy theorist, it's another way to limit his contract that's coming up and what he's going to be asking for if he has a subpar mediocre season. So I've moved him up as part of moving Fournette down. Jones went up. He's up to 14 in my rankings now. So it's not, I don't think he's a horrible addition to your fantasy roster by any means. But if you've got him at, where do you got him?
5.
5? That's a first round pick.
Right.
So I'm not on board with that. That's my big difference.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm not on board with that either. Like we said, you don't have a whole lot of weapons in Green Bay anymore. I really think that offense is going to start stepping back more and more. I just don't see how it's going to continue. And per what Sully said, listed off a lot of stats there. One that he missed was 7 of those 19 touchdowns last year also came in the 2 games Jamal Williams was out.
Yeah, 5 in one game, right?
Yep, that's another big stat there. So just inconsistency, not a guy I want in my top 10. I mean, he can repeat last year, and I don't want him in the first round because, again, if you're not going to be consistent, I want consistency at the beginning of a draft, and that's why I don't want him in my top 10, my first round. That said, if I'm picking 12 and 13 and it's gone all running backs, because I don't know, there's -2 points per reception for some reason or something.
One of those negative
you know,
PPR leagues that are all the rage, hey?
Yeah, maybe I'd take him, but I've got him just
Totally.
outside my top 12, so at 13. So
Yeah. So
again, I think he's good, but he's not just not consistent enough for me in the first round.
Fair.
All right.
Silver, sell me on Derrick Henry at 4. So I have him at Bryce and I both have him at 12. You have him. Oh, hang on. Where do you have him? Sorry,
I have him
I have him at 10.
Okay. I don't even have anybody's rankings right. So you have him at 6. Bryce is at 10. I'm at 12. That's not outrageous. Move on. I'm good. I had old rankings when I put the notes together. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Well, I'll just say, Derrick Henry right now, Darrington Evans has, from all reports, is not look good in camp. So that offense is going to 350 touches could be running through Derrick Henry again, and as long as he's healthy, he's going to win you games. He doesn't belong in the top 5 because he doesn't catch passes. So somewhere in that back half is what I'd be putting in there.
Rob, you have Tree Cohen at 7.
What the heck?
Is that correct?
That is not.
I was like, that has to be a typo. I couldn't imagine. I'm like, so
That
wait
is
a
not
minute.
What happened there?
Aaron Jones?
What happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened there later. But yeah, that was not.
All right.
Correct. That's
I'll
supposed to
So
be
let's
Austin.
talk.
That's supposed to be Austin Eckler, by the way.
Okay. Good. I'm okay then. So let's talk Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you can tell us why he's in your top 10, and Bryce and I will tell you why you're wrong.
Okay. Let's just answer this question. Was Damian Williams, when healthy and playing last year, a top 10 running back?
I don't think he was.
I think he was.
I don't think
Especially when he came back
I don't
not
know.
healthy. Who else is going to run the ball again there? It's kind of the same situation as Derrick Henry. Darrell Williams is just a guy. Darwin Thompson has potential, but is it still going to happen this year? There's no LaShawn McCoy to take away touches like there was from Damian Williams last year.
All right.
He fits what they want. The coach loves him. The quarterback loves him. He's going to have every opportunity to succeed. There is no more clear-cut way for a rookie to have a chance at a top 10 season, I think, than what Clyde Edwards-Helaire has walked into with no veterans and a coach and a quarterback who are talking about running and throwing the football through this guy.
Yeah, Darrell Williams has been there a while, and they really like him. And DeAndre Washington is there as well. And we saw what DeAndre Washington can do when he was given a chance in a much, much worse offense in Oakland last year. I know that there's no LaShawn McCoy there to steal the touches or split the backfield, but I think it's how many touches are we looking at CEH getting here, right? Like, it's so hard he's not going to be a 350 plus touch guy like Kareem Hunt was. He's not the talent that Kareem Hunt was.
It's going to be on the PPR side.
Right,
I'm expecting, him to catch 80 balls. I think that's realistic in that offense.
Wow, I think that's really high. So he's a 100 target running back?
I think so.
Well, how many times did they throw to the running back last year?
Not that often.
Right?
Not that often.
They just didn't resuscitate LT and put him in the backfield. I understand he's in a great spot, and I do believe that he's a pretty solid talent. He had 50 catches in Burrow's offense last year. He scored 17 touchdowns for LSU. The kid can play. I just don't see him becoming a workhorse running back right out of the gate, especially in an offense that has Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and, to a lesser extent, Mecole Hardman and Sammy Watkins. And there's just so many weapons there. Plus, Mahomes showed us he could run a little bit in the playoffs last year. So I just think it's a little high. I have him at 12, but he's going to fall back at, I don't know if he will or not. Never mind. I was going to say he'll fall back out of my top 12 when Fournette moves back up. But I don't know if Fournette's making it back into my top 12. I need to think about that.
So I've got him at 10, 12. Again, that's really not that big of a difference, right? I mean, it's pretty minuscule at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'm not calling him a top 5 quarterback. Or running back. I think he's got a chance to be a top 12 running back, though.
There are
we
a
were
lot
only
of
talking
places.
the top 10.
Yeah.
It's good to get him in there.
It's fair. There's a lot of places that have him ranked 6 and up.
And to me, that's unbelievable. I don't see
I
him
agree.
finishing. I think 10's his high water point, and that's where I got him at because I think I probably have a little dynasty bias when I rank.
Right.
And being a rookie, that's included in.
I think I can kind of speak for Sully and I as well. When you especially when you're doing redraft, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in the perfect situation to make us eat our words, right? With him being in a high-powered offense and having the ability to get a lot of touchdown upside, and nobody to really compete with him in carries that we're hearing of or seeing. But when you are doing redraft, that is a big gamble when you're going on a rookie guy, a rookie talent that really wasn't looked at. He was an afterthought of all the running backs in that draft until he was taken by the Chiefs. I feel like there was like 5 other running backs that people had on their radar, and depending on where they landed, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire just happened to land in the perfect spot. So when I look at like, you can't mess up in the first 2 rounds. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a guy that has not proven anything to anybody. And the 10 guys on my list have proved stuff for a year or 2 or more. So when I'm going with the first 2 rounds, even 3 rounds, I almost want people that are guaranteed to produce and have already produced at a high level in the NFL. And he hasn't yet. So that's kind of why I don't have him in the top 10, but it would not surprise me one bit if he ends up there. But I'm not willing to make that gamble in a redraft league.
So let's extend this conversation just a little bit to Jonathan Taylor, because let me just ask you guys where you have him ranked.
In redraft?
Yeah. As I'm seeing him in redraft in the mid-teens.
I am at 24.
Yeah, I would say probably in the high teens, if not low 20s, just because I'm not sure. Again, I'm not willing to gamble that because you're drafting him as a starter if you're taking him that high.
Oh, sure.
And I'm not drafting a starter that I don't know will get as many touches as I think another starter would get at that spot. So,
right. And I'll just say this to wrap up CEH. I know we all talk, and pretty much everybody, and myself included, had him as a running back 5 of a 5 back tier 1 in the rookie draft class.
Right.
Regardless of who landed in Kansas City, we were going to be high on them. So, just because to me, when people are like, yeah, but he was the least thought of running back, in the rookie draft. Well, that's true as far as the tier 1 guys. Right. But to me, they were all so close pre-draft that his landing spot makes up for that. That's why he fits where he fits. He's also the only guy without competition. He's the only rookie, I think, who has a chance at top 12 season. That's why I've got him there. Because I'll take that gamble.
But it wasn't a guy like Saquon where it's like, it don't matter where he lands. He's going to probably produce pretty high at his first level.
Zeke was the same, right?
Yeah, or Gurley. Or Gurley. So those are like really the last 2 running backs where they didn't land in a great situation, but they still produced at an extremely high level, even at their rookie year. So,
all right, moving on to wide receiver here. Bryce is high on one guy who's currently hurt. Ooh, I better get the dog in. It's raining heavy here. Brad and Cooper Kupp, and then Mike Evans as well. So, Bryce, why don't you start us off on that while I track down my puppy?
Which one? Cooper Kupp, you said?
Go for Kupp.
Yeah, go for Kupp there.
Yeah, was he hurt right now? I've worked so much, it's hard to keep track of that.
It's all good. Bryce, he's suffered a little ankle tweak in practice. He's fine.
Oh, okay. I just think I'm about to say I usually am pretty up to date on that stuff. I mean, yeah, I just think, we talked about Cooper Kupp that one day, and I did a little more research into him, and that offense just did better when he was on the field more. And it was kind of weird because he was producing. Wasn't he like the top 3 or 4 wide receiver in the first half of the year? And then they just didn't have him on the field as much anymore. And then the offense was actually doing worse. So I can't imagine a smart guy like Sean McVay, who's been to the Super Bowl already, continues a trend that wasn't working for him. I think he was maybe trying to implement some other styles and see how it looks. Maybe he knew the team wasn't ready to compete and wanted to see, get some, data for the upcoming season on what they could possibly implement, try some stuff out and things like that. And it wasn't working. And Cooper Kupp was the go-to guy for Jared Goff. And I think that team is going to be in some shootouts out there in the NFC. And I just think that, I like to go with the guy that the quarterback likes. And it seems like Cooper Kupp is that guy. So,
yeah, I'll just follow that up.
Sorry,
he
go ahead,
finished as wide receiver 5 on the year.
Yeah, so, I mean.
But, yeah, his first half was through the roof. The reason he's not in my top 10 is, well, one, there are so many wide receivers to love. Wide receiver is such a deep position. I don't think you can go wrong with the top 20 guys in whatever, pretty much in whatever order you want. There can be arguments made for a lot of guys to be in the top 10 individually. But his back half of the season, some of that inconsistency was a little disturbing. The part that got me was, so he started out the season with 5 of his first 8 games with over 100 yards, including a 220-yard game. The last 8 games of the season, one of them he didn't record a catch in, and not a single one of them did he have 100 yards receiving it. So that's I'm not sure what happened at the end of the year, and that's
didn't he finish really strong in the last 2 weeks though?
He had 99 and a touchdown and 31 and a touchdown the last 2 weeks.
Okay, so not that great.
Yeah, just kind of average. And, to me, average is around quarterback 12. That's I don't know what the difference was. I can't explain it. And if I can't explain it, I don't know if I want to take the risk.
I think the biggest difference to me watching, I love Cooper Kupp, and I own a lot of dynasty shares of him because of how much I like him. And I could play either side of the fence on this one. The other thing that I always kind of think about is, yeah, he was wide receiver 5. And yeah, he did have a good first half, not the greatest second half. But this is also a guy coming back off a torn ACL. So he might be even better this year. We don't even know that, right?
Yeah,
that's
true.
But to me, it was Sean McVay's changing of his offense to go to more 12-man or 12 personnel. And that's when you saw those 5 games out of Tyler Higbee that were like the best 5 tight ends or 5 games in tight end history or something close to it. So I have Kupp at, I think, 15, and I don't like him there. I think he's a top 12 wide receiver. To your point, Rob, I think I have 32 guys in my top 24. You know what I mean? Like it's just jam-packed full of talent.
Right.
But it's kind of a wait-and-see approach. Like I would still love to have Cooper Kupp on my fantasy roster. It's how McVay rolls that offense that we're going to see. And I keep trying to get tidbits from Hard Knocks, and I'm not getting them. But they came out today and said that McVay came out and said, and it could be coach speak, is that Higbee will be a large component of his offense this season. So who knows? But that's the reason why Kupp, actually have Kupp and Woods back to back in my rankings, and that pushes Kupp down. Is just that he's that guy that does damage in the middle of the field, and if they go to 12, then he's either coming off or going outside where he's not as good. So that's my thoughts on him.
Yeah. Sully, you were the only guy who had Calvin Ridley in the top 10. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm in love with this kid. I think he's unbelievable. I should have prepared better and had the exact numbers, but once Mohamed Sanu left Atlanta last year, I think he was averaging about wide receiver 10 numbers on this season. He had an amazing rookie season. He had an equally as good statistical, almost identical to his rookie season in his sophomore season in 3 less games played. You have Dirk Cutter's offense that is always seems to be top 5 in pass attempts, regardless if he's in Atlanta or Tampa. Calvin Ridley runs routes. He's a beautiful route runner. Julio Jones is still the guy there. I have Julio at 4, I think, and Ridley at 10. I think it's this year's version of Godwin's and Evans without injuries, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that does. And I honestly, like you said, there's just wide receivers so deep. We've said that it's hard to find any real discrepancies because no matter who might not be on my top 10 list and is on yours, you start talking about them, I'm probably going to like them a lot.
Yeah.
So let's move it on to tight ends and take a look at that. And Selda, you've got Mike Gesicki
Yeah.
up there in the top 10. I do as well. Bryce with him nowhere to be found. So, Bryce, why do you not like Mike Gesicki?
Tight ends for me, like I always end up taking a flyer in redraft because there's only really two that I want, and that's Travis Kelce and George Kittle. And I never draft them at where they're going, so I never get them. I don't think I own a single. I'm in like 9 leagues, and I don't own Travis Kelce, George Kittle in any redraft, keeper leagues, or dynasty leagues, and that's because I always take a flyer on them. I always go late on tight ends because I think that you can get very similar values from like tight end 4 all the way to tight end 15 sometimes. You have your anomalies like guys like Mark Andrews who came out of nowhere and blew up. And then you also have your consistent guys like Zach Ertz, but he's getting old. And I think that he's passing the crown down to get over to Dallas Goedert. They were both top 10 last year. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz ended up like right next to each other in this upcoming year when it comes to productivity. So it's not like I hate Mike Gesicki because he plays for the Dolphins, so I don't. Obviously, it's a rival against the Patriots, and I think that they always take away the pass game really well. So there's 2 weeks out of the year that I don't think he produces super high. And I just think there's some young guys that are going to have the ability to step up this year. And that would, consist of like Ingram, Jonnu Smith, Noah Fant, and Blake Jarwin. I think that those guys this year surprise a lot of people and accumulate way more value. Jonnu Smith is my buddy who's a Titans fan, thinks he reminds him a lot of Delaney Walker, but he runs harder once he gets the ball in his hands. Drew Lock loves Noah Fant, so I think that Noah Fant could have that kind of second year step into the a good year for him. And then Blake Jarwin's this year's Darren Waller. I was big on Darren Waller last year, and for this year it's Blake Jarwin. So I'm probably biased when it comes to my number 10 spot in that one. So.
And I'll just say this: tight ends more so than any other year. I mean, I do the same thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go for a tight end early because I want to fill my other positions first. I'll let other guys take Kelce and Kittle,
Right.
And I think Mark Andrews belongs up there fully now in that group. And I'm still going to pass on him and take a flyer on somebody else late because unless you have one of them, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say even more so this year because there's guys I like at my 19-20 ranks this year. Blake Jarwin, Chris Herndon, that I think could have top 12 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Easily. And, this is the best tight end group we've ever seen.
I would definitely agree with that. I've never been more excited to draft a tight end in round whatever. I don't even know what round I'm drafting him in. But I think I took Noah Fant as I had a quarterback, my full roster filled with 2 bench spots, and then I think I got a tight end, and I was so happy with I got Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith, and Blake Jarwin all kind of back to back to back because at that point I'm like, well, if one of them pans out, then you hit. You know what I mean? So
exactly, and if one of them and if the others don't, at that point, who cares? Just cut them, right? I don't have a lot to say on tight end. I was just looking at my rankings, so I have Waller at 6, and I have Herndon at 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it flipped around and everybody in there was all over the place. It's like Yahtzee, right? Throw your tight ends in a cup, shake it up, and spill it out.
Yeah.
There is a legit top 2 for sure. And I think that then Andrews is in a tier by himself. And then I'd put Ertz probably in a tier by himself. And then it's a cluster all the way down to the bottom. I finished a draft a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. And I was like, I should probably grab a tight end here sooner rather than later, getting to around 11 or 12, and I started looking, and I'm like, okay, I'll take Gesicki here, and he went right before me. I'm like, okay, well, I'll take Fant on the way back, and he went right before me. So I'm like, okay, and I just kept waiting, and the chat starts to kind of trash talk me a little bit. Are you taking a tight end? And I was like, yeah, I'll get one. And I took Jonnu Smith in the 16th and final round of that draft, and I couldn't be happier. I don't care. It's awesome. So tight end is a fun position. It seems like every year we say it's the best tight end year we've ever seen, but maybe this year it'll actually be that way.
Yeah, it feels like it. I don't know. I hate drafting tight ends. I don't even want them starting in many leagues, unless you got tight end premiums. But Well, that'll wrap up kind of our main topic. So, guys, we want to remind you, like and subscribe here on the YouTube and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our RotoHeat content. And, well, let's get into some quick fire questions here, guys. Got anything on the YouTube or the Facebook?
Yes, we do have a couple on YouTube. The first one here is from Little Rems 328, and it's, are you, or where would Leonard Fournette be projected to pick for right now? Would you take him in the 3rd or the 4th round? So at what point now going into Tampa are you comfortable drafting Leonard Fournette?
Well, I think he already was, for a lot of people, like a 3rd or 4th round pick. So with Jacksonville, I'd probably keep him in the same spot until I get a better chance to look at it. He probably dropped down 3-4 rounds for me initially, maybe a few more. I'd still be fine either the 3rd or the 4th, wherever you feel like he's a fit for you.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think his value goes up a little bit, but then again, he's getting put on this team less than 2 weeks before the season starts. So I don't know how it's going to be the first couple of weeks. Are they going to kind of maybe do a little bit of running back by committee till he picks up the offense fully, and then he just gets implemented right away? I think it's going to be weak. People, I'm in a chat, and then they're all saying like Leonard Fournette's value just went down. They're going to share the backfield. I'm like, Ronald Jones is not that good. He's not close to Leonard Fournette. They're not going to share the backfield, except maybe week 1. And I think you mentioned it last week or the week before, Silvers, that Ronald Jones is not doing well in camp catching the ball out of the backfield. Leonard Fournette caught the ball 76 times last year, and someone tried to tell me he's not a good pass-catching back. So sometimes you have to debate some people that don't know what they're talking about. But I think Leonard Fournette fits.
Usually me, so.
Yep. I've wanted the Patriots to have in the running back at all times. Like, I'm tired of one back that's for catching, one back for running. It makes your offense way more predictable. He's a dual threat running back, and I think that I'm going to take him probably not in a different round, but maybe a few picks higher than I would have.
Yeah, I'm not going to move him. I think I'm with Rob. I'm going to have him in that 3rd, 4th round. I think he adds value for you. If anything in Tampa, like Bruce Arians loves veteran running backs. Like I could see McCoy and Fournette taking over that backfield, and McCoy getting 6 to 8 touches a game, and Fournette 14 to 16 in Rojo if he dresses right. So I don't know. I think it's really bad for Ronald Jones. It's pretty darn lateral-ish for Leonard Fournette, other than he's in a way better offense. But touch-wise, I think he's still going to be their primary ball carrier.
Right. All right. Let's rapid fire whatever we got left. Like,
how about a really fast dynasty question? Keyshawn Vaughn for Sony Michel is the trade offer. What do you need to add to ship Sony away? So what do you want on the Keyshawn Vaughn side is to trade him for Sony Michel in a dynasty league? 3 seconds or less. Ready, go.
A first.
A second for me.
Yeah, a second or a third, because I think in Dynasty, Keyshawn Vaughn,
first.
It might be a bust. I'll take a second. Cool. Okay. Any questions on Facebook, guys?
Jamie Sands says, "What's up, Sully?"
Hey, Jamie. Good to see you, man.
All right. Well, that'll wrap us up. Guys, next week's the start of the season.
I know.
We get football.
One day before.
Preview Thursday night next week.
Yeah, we get to preview Thursday night, preview Sunday a little bit. Just kickoff, NFL kickoff show comes your way next Wednesday night. I can't believe it's finally here. I'm pumped. Tune in next Tuesday at 9:30. Have those start-sit questions for us. All that good stuff for week 1. We'll be ready to go. And other than that, we'll see you guys next Wednesday. And make sure to follow along on the Discord and the Facebook groups, RotoHeat Redraft Facebook group, and then of course there's also the Dynasty group. And if you're able, join the Patreon at rotoheat.com/Patreon and get access to our rankings and all that good stuff, including Rick Butt's live kickoff show from 11:15 Central. Is it 11? Is it 10?
Are you on that one?
I'm going to, yeah.
Love it.
Rick is there's gonna be a free Sunday morning show for everybody on YouTube, and then a 15-minute break, and like the final hour heading up to kickoff or the final.
From 10 to 11, it's the free show, and then from 11:15 to 12:15, it's going to be the Patreon only.
And that's Eastern time.
Yes.
So 11:15 to or 10:15, 11:15 to 12:15, the Patreon
Yes.
show on Sunday mornings to get you set for kickoff. One of the benefits of being a Patreon, so make sure if you can, you go do that as well. That'll wrap us up. Thanks everybody for watching another episode or listening to another episode of the Fantasy Inferno.
Nice job, guys.
Don't forget, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any more fantasy football content from the RotoHeat.com team. Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it.